Hi everybody, Dhaman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me on my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. Uh, this is going to be the last video, obviously, for 2024, so it's there. For those that don't know this journey, what I'm doing, I started reading fanfiction back in high school a long time ago. And after years and years, I came across a thread of somebody who decided to go back to their previous favorites list on a site that they didn't necessarily read a lot anymore, and see if their tastes had changed in the years since. And I thought that was a really interesting concept, and I decided to do it myself, especially since, fan fiction is such a big part of my life and how much I still read every day. So, decided to go back to the first site that I started reading fanfiction on, which was fanfiction.net, and go through my favorites list of all the stories that I had, all the stories that I had ever favorited. And it was a big list. 1,200. I was over to like 1,200 stories when I started, and it's still got a bit to go. I've been doing this now for, want to say, over 6 years. I think I started in 2018. And I still have about 120 stories to go. So there we have it. So these are the stories that have been there. I have 7 more for you now. These stories are written, though I've been going through them by order by publication date. So any newer stories would have ended up later on the list so that I could read them after. I won't mess up. So yeah, let's just dive into these stories, starting with A Voyage Toward the Stars by Kujikiri21. This is Percy Jackson crossing over with Campione, light novel / anime. Actually, I'm not even sure if it is an anime. I know it's a light novel, but yeah. So it's Campione, and this is pretty much nothing. It's 60,000 words that is one fight scene, and then 30,000, like, it's a whole, the rest of it is explaining the Campione verse to the Olympian gods. Like, that's basically it. Maybe it could have gone somewhere and been interesting, but as it stands, it's just a big ball of nothing. It's gonna fall off my list. Next is Restraint is Overrated by emanucode. This is a worm self-insert, choose your own powers fic, where the self-insert character gets all the triumvirate's powers with the shattered limiter set up, and decides to just go on a power trip. Basically, this whole thing is just the Taylor who the SI jumps into Taylor's body and takes her over, just shoving her powers into other people's faces and laughing at how she'll have no consequences because she's so strong. It's realistic in the sense that I can imagine a lot of people, especially people who read Worm and want to and like feel for Taylor, would like do that. Just be like, hey, she's now got powers, I have powers, and I can do whatever the fuck I want and fuck all the bullies and such and that. And yeah, it makes sense, but it doesn't make it an interesting read. And as it's incomplete, it's just a bunch of like small bits of like random shit happening. It's gonna fall off my list. Number 3 is Wizard and the Lonely Princess Chamber of Secrets by Harry Leferts. And this is a sequel story to Wizard and the Lonely Princess 1. Where Harry, as a kid, met up with Princess Luna and Nightmare Moon of My Little Pony, and got together, like hung out and were friends and such. This is another sequel story from like of the many that just doesn't do anything. Like it doesn't actually continue or get anywhere. Like this one only exists for like a couple days in the summer. Still, we don't even get back to Hogwarts. There's a few cute bonding moments between Harry, Luna, and Nightmare Moon, but it doesn't really progress anything. Nothing important happens. There's no significant or super great moments in this small bit of stuff here, so this can be just skipped and forgotten about. It's gonna fall off my list. Next is Sekirei Game by Sakura Demon Alchemist. So this is a 12-year-old female Harry fanfic where Harry's like a femme Harry somehow ends up in Shintokyo during the Sekirei game, and also has the gamer ability, and just ends up getting herself a big, Sekirei harem. And honestly, the setup of like her having the gamer ability, why she's in Tokyo, how she got there, all that stuff, that's pretty much off-screened at the beginning and never just doesn't get elaborated on. And the story just starts, and goes on a bit more of a comedic slice of life route with occasional references to levels and such. There's points for it being a gamer fic that does not devolve into just walls and walls of stat screens every single chapter and such like that. But it also loses a bit because there's just no setup and explanation for anything. There's also some novelty in that this is a gamer fic where the person with the ability is just telling everybody that they have this ability, and like just not just like her Sekirei or like Mia or like the people who are living, but like, oh, the Japanese wizards showed up and they're teaching her spells. Oh, they'll tell her that, and like, oh, so I gotta use a spell 3 times to get it to level 1 or whatever, and that's how they're teaching her and stuff. And like, it's like, okay, that's a bit interesting, I guess. Like, it's not, most fics don't do that. But overall, I just kind of found the story to be mid. It's okay. 6.5, 7 out of 10, I guess. Like, something I don't mind reading if I come across it, but it's not something I would look for or look to revisit. So that's gonna fall off my list. Number 5 is Delirium Victoria by The Cauldron. This is a Harry Potter non-crack pen pal fic where Harry and Voldemort basically send a bunch of letters back and forth to each other, and then Harry solves, ends the big bad without violence and stuff. I have to specify non-crack because there are crack versions that I don't remember if I've gone through it on my list already or if they're on my list later, but I do remember those as well, and those are really fun. That one, like a couple, I remember at least 1 or 2, and those are really fun to read. This one, it's not, as I said, it's non-crack. It's a bit more serious, brings in a bit of depression, a little heavy on like the Harry abuse that happens with this, which is kind of there. But the back and forth between Harry and Voldemort is honestly like semi-sweet and like is like entertaining. I did enjoy it, and yeah, the ending is like bit bittersweet, but also still good. I liked it a lot. I enjoyed this a lot more than just I thought I would, because it's non-crack and serious. So like for such a weird or like a slightly ridiculous premise, it still fits well, and I think it's really good. So it's gonna stay on my list. Number 6 is Always Read the Fine Print by Questionable Quotation. This is another Harry Potter one-shot where Harry basically looks at a bunch of weird, vague contract law and stuff during the Triwizard Tournament and just uses it to become super powerful. Okay. Or, a bunch of these, I've read a bunch of these. Sorry. I've read a bunch of these. The ones I can remember mostly play it straight, like this one does. Here, like, Harry basically ends up draining pretty much everyone living, and then also proceeds to drain everyone dead of magic and become a god, and then just walks away from Hogwarts after the tournament and stuff. This gets a little bonus points for Harry actually having to set up a scheme to get actual signatures or like some kind of input from the people, because I remember a bunch of these where it's just like, oh, you can just write contracts, whatever, and like that's the excuse for why Harry was entered into it, like without him signing it or whatever. Like, just, oh, you can just write a name and it's just magic just applies to anybody. Like, that's a thing, okay. But this one at least like actually requires actual signatures or people's name, like true names and such or whatever. So it gets bonus points for that. But overall, it's okay, fine. Doesn't really have any aside from the concept and like Harry actually sneaking around to try and do stuff. There's no big payoff or like super interesting way it does. It's not crack or it's not funny, so there's no joke or a huge thing there. So it's just not something that's like worth rereading or revisiting again. So yeah, it's gonna fall off my list. And the final story for this list is The Vanishing Cabinet of Time. I have it says here by VM Fiction, but I believe he changed his name. Oh no, okay, so it is, yeah. VM Fan Fiction by VM Fan Fiction. This story is time travel fic where Harry and Hermione end up going to the past after it starts during the Hogwarts attack in the 7th book, and they end up back at the end of the 3rd book. It involves an evil Dumbledore and Ron that's like spying on them. Such that initial reveal like gets immediately revealed in the first chapter, like right before they do the time travel, and it's really really clumsy and such. And then when Harry and Hermione go back in time, they're like immediately actively confrontational to Dumbles and like revealing that, yeah, we know you're bad and we know you're against you, and like it's okay, but like it seems to just work out fine, and they're just going out doing stuff, and Dumbles doesn't really have anything to counter them, which if he's really that powerful and that stuff seems kind of like, wow, he's kind of ineffective, and just how stupid were you that he could just take over and take you, right? Like it makes him seem as ineffective as a villain. And so like I was just not interested during this reread, and I didn't find anything terrible, but it all just felt bland and boring, so it's not going to stay on my list. And there we have it. Fanfiction status time. I've now read 1,132 stories, and 528 of them have managed to stay on my list. So there we go. As always, I will leave links to the stories in the description of this video, as well as links to the forum where I also post this in written form, as well as playlists where all of this is there and such, all the things. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the new year. Take care, everybody.